name is Anthony Ibarra, and I will be talking to you first about our inflation project, specifically how our rates that we took in the grocery store correspond with the inflation rates in the United States.
My name is David Bubash, and I will be explaining the strengths and weaknesses of our calculations of the rates for this class and at government levels.
My name is Axmacher. I'll be talking about the effects that corn and gas play on the prices in the grocery store.
I'm Higgins. I'm going to be talking about the overall strengths and weaknesses of this project.
Comparatively, in the United States, we rank in the middle, considering that countries such as Belarus and Switzerland have outstanding inflation rates. Belarus has an inflation rate of 52.4%. That's very high. And Switzerland has one of the lowest rate, which has an inflation rate of 0.2%. And the world average is actually 5%. So with the United States standing at 3.1, we're not doing too bad comparatively. Now, on a regional level, the United States is all over the board when comparing their inflation rates. It all depends on where you live. For example, in the Midwest region, the United States consumer prices were down. And in the mountain ranges, it looks like the price index, CPI, Consumer Price Index, it finished with a rate of 2.2% over the year. And the main reason that the Mountain Plains region had a decline of inflation was in the drop in energy prices. And that was for the month of October. Now, for the western region of the United States, such as Los Angeles, they had an increase of 3.1%. And the reason behind this increase of inflation is that energy prices jumped 11.4% in the month of October. And gasoline prices also had a large increase to go along with that. The food prices for this region, they edged up to 0.2%, so not very much considerably, but we want to take that into an effect as a group, considering that our job was to calculate the inflation rates in the grocery store. The region such as New York, they had a CPI dip of 0.1%, which isn't very much, but the past year it was considerably higher, 1.7%. And this is primarily due to the increase in shelter, food, and gasoline, for example. In addition, Kansas City. Kansas City had a price increase of 2.6%. And that was because shelter and food were increased. The Kansas City also had a food index increase of 4.4% to keep consistent with the food prices. And then lastly, to compare Kansas City on a local level, St. Louis also had an increase in inflation of 5.3%. And that was because mainly of groceries and shelter, just like it was in the United States. So, just how it was in Kansas City. So that was pretty interesting. And now let's talk about our prices in the grocery store. Our first trip, we spent $197.98. Our last trip, we spent $189.17. The biggest change in prices came from gasoline, where we spent $66.98 on our first trip and $62.47 on our last trip. We also saw a price decrease in, for example, Eggland organic eggs, soda, beef ribeye, family pack, and bread. We also saw an increase in price for two of our items, such as Hormel center cut bacon and Belfani 2% milk. Prices that we reported stayed the same were Kraft, Sharp Cheddar, Oreos, Smart Balance, Gillette Fusion Shave Gel, and Axe Body Spray. So in conclusion, you can see that the general prices in our food and gasoline rose. And on a national scale, you can see from the different data that we collected in the region, those prices have also been rising as well. Now I'll turn it over to David Bubash.
So one of the strengths of our calculation of the rates for this class is that it showed that there's not as much inflation in the products as much as deflation. The only things that increased in prices throughout this project were whole milk, center cut bacon, which had an inflation rate of 4.03%, and Belfine 2% milk, which had an inflation rate of 7.92%. Most food items actually stay the same, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, Crest toothpaste, and Axe body spray, which shows that the economy is at least not getting worse, at least as far as these products go. And a lot of items actually decrease in price throughout the weeks, like gas prices, peanut butter, and white bread, which all had deflation of prices. And so, looking at this, it showed us how the economy is constantly changing before our eyes. It allows us to see that the economy is actually improving in many areas, as well as becoming worse in a couple other areas, but it's improving overall. One of the biggest weaknesses of this calculation of rates for this class is that you're only, by looking at the rates of inflation and deflation, you could be deceived into thinking that prices are staying the same or decreasing when actually they're fluctuating quite a bit. For example, on the first week when we did this project, we bought soda for $10, and the last week soda also cost $10. However, that was because it was on sale and it was normally for $12. But just by looking at the first and last week, people would not know this. They would think that soda cost $10. But this could happen for any product as long as the price stays the same on the first and last week when people are calculating. They won't know how much it's actually fluctuating. They'll think that the economy for these products are staying the same. And one final weakness is that although we can see that prices may be decreasing, we don't know why they're decreasing. We would assume that it's because the economy is getting better, but there could be other reasons. For example, if we saw that peanut butter was decreasing, we would think it's because the economy is getting stronger. But there could be other cases, such as like if people were getting sick from eating peanut butter, less people would be buying it. And so they would decrease prices to encourage people to keep buying it. So we would think it was because we would think that prices were decreasing because of a strong economy, but that is not the case at all. So now I'm going to turn this over to Will Axmacher, who will be talking about how corn and gas affect prices in the grocery store.
Pricing of goods can be very difficult at times due to external forces such as the weather, the economy, and the time of year. According to a recent ABC News article by Jim Avila, the Department of Agriculture is expecting a 5% rise on grocery store prices over the next 9 months due to nationwide drought over the summer. The drought is now covering 60% of the United States, which is pushing up prices for feed and grain that then translates to higher prices for meat, such as beef, pork, and chicken. The article believes that beef prices will be the biggest hike, from 4 to 5%, milk and dairy second by 3.5 to 4.5%, and lastly, the price of eggs will go up from 3 to 4%. Some other examples of external forces that may affect the cost of goods from the local markets are two major items. They are corn and gasoline. The vegetable corn, which these days seems to be in everything that we consume, is very volatile. When the price of corn rises, those who make the food that you later buy have to pay more for it, and then the cost is then passed on to the buyer. Second is gas, which is also very volatile in pricing. It doesn't take a large rise in fuel prices to drastically hurt a budget. The high cost of fuel is not just felt by drivers and airliners, it is also felt by the world's food producers, who have to then spend more money on gasoline to ship their products to those wanting to sell it. This increased cost is also passed on to the buyer at the grocery store. Corn and gasoline affect mainly food only in the grocery store. If there's a shortage of corn or gas, then it is going to be a lot more expensive. Other items in the grocery store are not necessarily affected by corn and gas. These items are generally items such as toothpaste, deodorant, medicine, shampoo, and razors. And now Drew Higgins will talk about overall strengths and weaknesses of the project.
Every project has natural biases and problems that are built into the work, no matter what project you're doing. But there are also many good things that come from projects. Through this project, we were able to go to one store every week on the same day to pick out our items. This eliminated any biases that could happen if we went a day later and the prices jumped from the past week. Another strength of this project was that our basket contained many of the items that we buy on a daily or on a weekly basis, especially if we live in housing that requires us to cook for ourselves. Through this, we have to pick our brands, off-brand or on, that we use to give a realistic feel to how inflation affects not only our everyday lives, but the people who live in suburbs, people who live in the city, everybody's everyday life. But there were some weaknesses in this project. Every week we had to put in toiletries such as shampoo and toothpaste, and items like that we do not run through on a weekly basis. We usually can wait about a month or so before, probably even longer, before we replace those items. We also purchased large quantities of goods, such as our tub of butter, which was I think about a 15-ounce tub, which we will not run through in 1 week. It would probably take us a lot longer. So those added to the price of our overall basket, made it more expensive than it probably needed to. Also, gas is a huge portion of our overall basket, and as soon as the prices in gas started to fall, prices overall in our basket started to fall as well. Through that, we were able to see how inflation affects every person in this world, from the food that we eat to how the grocery stores get it, to the price of gas, and to see how everything is intertwined and has a huge effect on an economy like the economy of the United States.